The Book of Acts, Chapter 1. The former treatise have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahusha began both to do and teach, until the day in which he was taken up, after that he, through the Ruach HaKodesh, had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen, to whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. And, being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Yerushalaim, but wait for the promise of the Father, which, saith he, ye have heard of me. For Yehuchanan truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh, not many days hence. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Adonai, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Yasharel? And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power, but ye shall receive power after that the Ruach HaKodesh is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me, both in Yerushalaim, and in all Yehud, and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Yahusha, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. Then returned they unto Yerushalaim, from the mount called Olivet, which is from Yerushalaim a Shabbat day's journey. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room, where abode both Kepha and Yaakov, and Yehuchanan, and Andrai, Philip, Taom, Bartolomai, and Matithiyahu, Yaakov the son of Caleb, and Shimon the Zealot, and Yehuda the brother of Yaakov. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication, with the women, and Miriam the mother of Yahusha, and with his brethren. And in those days Kepha stood up in the midst of the disciples, and said, the number of names together were about 120. Men and brethren, this scripture must needs have been fulfilled, which the Ruach HaKodesh by the mouth of David spake before concerning Yehuda, which was guide to them that took Yahusha. For he was numbered with us, and had obtained part of this ministry. Now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. And it was known unto all the dwellers at Yerushalaim, insomuch as that field is called in their proper tongue Akeldama, that is to say, the field of blood. For it is written in the book of Psalms, Let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his ministry let another take. Wherefore, of these men which have companied with us all the time that the Adonai Yahusha went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of Yehuchanan, unto that same day that he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection. And they appointed 2, Joseph, called Bartsava, who was surnamed Eustace, and Matithiyahu. And they prayed, and said, Thou, Yahuwah, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether of these 2 thou hast chosen, that he may take part of this ministry and apostleship, from which Yehuda by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matithiyahu, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. Acts 2. And when the day of Shavuot was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Ruach gave them utterance. And there were dwelling at Yerushalaim Yahudim, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together, and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? Parthians, and Medes, and Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia, and in Yehud, and Cappadocia, and Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia, and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Yahudim, and proselytes, Cretes, and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of Yahuwah. And they were all amazed, and were in doubt, saying one to another, What meaneth this? Others mocking said, These men are full of new wine. But Kepha, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice, and said unto them, You men of Yehud, and all ye that dwell at Yerushalaim, be this known unto you, and hearken to my words. For these are not drunken as ye suppose, seeing it is but the 3rd hour of the day. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Yoel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith Elohim, I will pour out of my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my Ruach, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before that great and notable day of Yahuwah come. And it shall come to pass, that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. Ye men of Yasharel, hear these words. Yahusha of Nazareth, a man approved of Elohim among you by miracles and wonders and signs, which Elohim did by him in the midst of you, as ye yourselves also know. Him, being delivered by the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of Elohim, you have taken, and by wicked hands have crucified and slain, whom Yahuwah hath raised up, having loosed the pains of death, because it was not possible that he should be holden of it. For David speaketh concerning him, I foresaw Yahuwah always before my face, for he is on my right hand, that I should not be moved. Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover, also my flesh shall rest in hope, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Thou hast made known to me the ways of life. Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance. Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that Yahuwah had sworn with an oath to him, that of the fruit of his loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up Mashiach to sit on his throne. He, seeing this before, spake of the resurrection of Mashiach, that his soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption. This Yahusha hath Elohim raised up, whereof we all are witnesses. Therefore, being by the right hand of Yahuwah, exalted and having received of the Father the promise of the Ruach HaKodesh, he has shed forth this, which ye now see and hear. For David is not ascended into the heavens, but he saith himself, Yahuwah said unto my Adonai, Sit thou on my right hand, until I make thy foes thy footstool. Therefore, let all the house of Yasharel know assuredly that Yahuwah hath made that same Yahusha, whom ye have crucified, both Adonai and Mashiach. Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart, and said unto Kepha and to the rest of the apostles, Men and brethren, what shall we do? Then Kepha said unto them, Repent, and be baptized every one of you, in the name of Yahusha HaMashiach, for the remission of sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. For the promise is unto you, and to your children, and to all that are afar off, even as many as Yahuwah our Elohim shall call. And with many other words did he testify and exhort, saying, Save yourselves from this untoward generation. Then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. And all that believed were together, and had all things common, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men, as every man had need. And they, continuing daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, praising Elohim, and having favor with all the people. And Yahuwah added to the assembly daily such as should be saved. Acts 3. Now Kepha and Yehuchanan went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. And a certain man, lame from his mother's womb, was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple, who, seeing Kepha and Yehuchanan about to go into the temple, asked an alms. And Kepha, fastening his eyes upon him with Yehuchanan, said, Look on us. And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. Then Kepha said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Yahusha HaMashiach of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand, and lifted him up, and immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he, leaping up, stood, and walked, and entered with them into the temple, walking, and leaping, and praising Elohim. And all the people saw him walking and praising Elohim. And they knew that it was he which sat for alms at the beautiful gate of the temple. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at that which had happened unto him. And as the lame man which was healed held Kepha and Yehuchanan, all the people ran together unto them in the porch that is called Shalomaz, greatly wondering. And when Kepha saw it, he answered unto the people, Ye men of Yasharel, why marvel ye at this? Or why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we had made this man to walk? The Elohim of Abraham, and of Ishak, and of Yaakov, the Elohim of our fathers, hath glorified his son Yahusha, whom ye delivered up, and denied him in the presence of Pilate, when he was determined to let him go. But ye denied the Holy One and the Just, and desired a murderer to be granted unto you, and killed the Prince of Life, whom Yahuwah hath raised from the dead, whereof we are witnesses. And his name, through faith in his name, hath made this man strong, whom ye see and know. Yea, the faith which is by him hath given him this perfect soundness in the presence of you all. And now, brethren, I wot that through ignorance ye did it, as did also your fathers. But those things which Yahuwah before had showed by the mouth of all his prophets, that Mashiach should suffer, he hath so fulfilled. Repent ye therefore, and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of Yahuwah. And he shall send Yahusha HaMashiach, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which Elohim has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. For Moses truly said unto the fathers, A prophet shall Yahuwah your Elohim raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall ye hear in all things, whatsoever he shall say unto you. And it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear that prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. Yea, and all the prophets from Shemuel and those that follow after, as many as have spoken, have likewise foretold of these days. Ye are the children of the prophets, and of the covenant which Elohim made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, And in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. Unto you first, Yahuwah, having raised up his son Yahusha, sent him to bless you, in turning away every one of you from his iniquities. Acts 4. And as they spake unto the people, the priests and the captains of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people, and preached through Yahusha the resurrection from the dead. And they laid hands on them, and put them in hold unto the next day, for it was now eventide. Howbeit many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of the men was about 5,000. And it came to pass on the morrow that their rulers and elders and scribes, and Hananiah the high priest, and Caiaphas, and Yehochanan, and Alexander, and as many as were of the kindred of the high priest, were gathered together at Yerushalaim. And when they had set them in the midst, they asked, By what power or by what name have ye done this? Then Kepha, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, said unto them, Ye rulers of the people, and elders of Yasharel, if we this day be examined of the good deed done to the impotent man, by what means he is made whole, be it known unto you all, and to all the people of Yasharel, that by the name of Yahusha HaMashiach of Nazareth, whom ye crucified, whom Elohim raised from the dead, even by him doth this man stand here before you whole. This is the stone which was set at naught of you builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Now when they saw the boldness of Kepha and Yehochanan, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them, that they had been with Yahusha. And beholding the man which was healed standing with them, they could say nothing against it. But when they had commanded them to go aside out of the council, they conferred among themselves, saying, What shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them is manifest to all them that dwell in Yerushalaim, and we cannot deny it. But that it spread no further among the people, let us straitly threaten them, that they speak henceforth to no man in this name. And they called them, and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yahusha. But Kepha and Yehochanan answered, and said unto them, Whether it be right in the sight of Elohim to hearken unto you more than unto Yahuwah, judge ye, for we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them, because of the people. For all men glorified Yahuwah for that which was done. For the man was above 40 years old, on whom this miracle of healing was showed. And being let go, they went to their own company, and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. And when they heard that, they lifted up their voice to Yahuwah with one accord, and said, Yahuwah, thou art Elohim, which has made heaven and earth and the sea, and all that in them is, who by the mouth of thy servant David has said, Why did the heathen rage, and the people imagine vain things? The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against Yahuwah and against his Mashiach. For of a truth, against thy holy child Yahusha, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Yasharal were gathered together, for to do whatsoever thy hand and thy counsel determined before to be done. And now, Yahuwah, behold their threatenings, and grant unto thy servants that with all boldness they may speak thy word, by stretching forth thine hand to heal, and that signs and wonders may be done by the name of thy holy child Yahusha. And when they had prayed, the place was shaken where they were assembled together, and they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and they spake the word of Elohim with boldness. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Adonai Yahusha, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. And Joseph, who by the apostles was surnamed Barnavi, which is, being interpreted, the son of consolation, a Levite, and of the country of Cyprus, having land, sold it, and brought the money, and laid it at the apostles' feet. Acts 5. But a certain man named Ananias, with Sapphira his wife, sold a possession, and kept back part of the price, his wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part, and laid it at the apostles' feet. But Cephas said, Ananias, why has Satan filled thine heart to lie to the Ruach HaKodesh, and to keep back part of the price of the land? Whiles it remained, was it not thine own? And after it was sold, was it not in thine own power? Why hast thou conceived this thing in thine heart? Thou hast not lied unto men, but unto Elohim. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down, and gave up the Ruach. And great fear came on all them that heard these things. And the young men arose, wound him up, and carried him out, and buried him. And it was about the space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. And Cephas answered unto her, Tell me, whether ye sold the land for so much? And she said, Yea, for so much. Then Cephas said unto her, How is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the Ruach of Yahuwah? Behold, the feet of them which have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. Then fell she down straightway at his feet, and yielded up the Ruach. And the young men came in, and found her dead, and carrying her forth, buried her by her husband. And great fear came upon all the assembly, and upon as many as heard these things. And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people. And they were all with one accord in Shalomah's porch. And of the rest durst no man join himself to them, but the people magnified them. And believers were the more added to Yahuwah, multitudes both of men and women, insomuch that they brought forth the sick into the streets, and laid them on beds and couches, that at the least the shadow of Cephas passing by might overshadow some of them. There came also a multitude out of the cities round about unto Yerushalaim, bringing sick folk, and them which were vexed with unclean ruachoth, and they were healed every one. Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is a sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation, and laid their hands on the apostles, and put them in the common prison. But the angel of Yahuwah by night opened the prison doors, and brought them forth, and said, Go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life. And when they heard that, they entered into the temple early in the morning, and taught. But the high priest came, and they that were with him, and called the council together, and all the senate of the children of Yasharel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. But when the officers came, and found them not in the prison, they returned, and told, saying, The prison truly found we shut with all safety, and the keepers standing without before the doors. But when we had opened, we found no man within. Now when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priests heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this would grow. Then came one and told them, saying, Behold, the men whom ye put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people. Then went the captain with the officers, and brought them without violence, for they feared the people, lest they should have been stoned. And when they had brought them, they set them before the council, and the high priest asked them, saying, Did not we straitly command you that ye should not teach in this name? And, behold, ye have filled Yerushalaim with your doctrine, and intend to bring this man's blood upon us. Then Kepha and the other apostles answered and said, We ought to obey Yah rather than men. The Elohim of our fathers raised up Yahusha, whom ye slew and hanged on a tree. Him hath Elohim exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a savior, for to give repentance to Yasharel and forgiveness of sins. And we are his witnesses of these things, and so is also the Ruach HaKodesh, whom Yahuwah hath given to them that obey him. When they heard that, they were cut to the heart, and took counsel to slay them. Then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee, named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, Ye men of Yasharel, take heed to yourselves what ye intend to do as touching these men. For before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who was slain, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to naught. After this man rose up Yehuda of Galilee in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of Yahuwah, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against Elohim. And to him they agreed. And when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahusha, and let them go. And they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. And daily in the temple and in every house they ceased not to teach and preach Yahusha HaMashiach. Acts 6. And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Yavanim against the Ivrim, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Then the 12 called the multitude of the disciples unto them, and said, It is not reason that we should leave the word of Yahuwah and serve tables. Wherefore, brethren, look ye out among you 7 men of honest report, full of the Ruach HaKodesh, and wisdom, whom we may appoint over this business. But we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. And the saying pleased the whole multitude. And they chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the Ruach HaKodesh, and Philip, and Prochorus, and Nicanor, and Timon, and Parmenas, and Nicholas, a proselyte of Antioch, whom they set before the apostles. And when they had prayed, they laid their hands on them. And the word of Yahuwah increased, and the number of the disciples multiplied in Yerushalaim greatly. And a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith. And Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and miracles among the people. Then there arose certain of the synagogue, which is called the synagogue of the Libertines, and Cyrenians, and Alexandrians, and of them of Cilicia, and of Asia, disputing with Stephen. And they were not able to resist the wisdom and the Ruach by which he spake. Then they suborned men, which said, We have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and against Elohim. And they stirred up the people, and the elders, and the scribes, and came upon him, and caught him, and brought him to the council, and set up false witnesses, which said, This man ceaseth not to speak blasphemous words against this holy place and the Torah. For we have heard him say that this Yahusha of Nazareth shall destroy this place, and shall change the customs which Moses delivered us. And all that sat in the council, looking steadfastly on him, saw his face as it had been the face of an angel. Acts 7. Then said the high priest, Are these things so? And he said, Men, brethren, and fathers, hearken. The Elohim of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran, and said unto him, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Haran, and from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein ye now dwell. And he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And Elohim spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil for 100 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said Elohim. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Yitzchak, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Yitzchak begat Yaakov, and Yaakov begat the 12 patriarchs. And the patriarchs, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Mitzrayim, but Elohim was with him, and delivered him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim. And he made him governor over Mitzrayim and all his house. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Mitzrayim and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. But when Yaakov heard that there was corn in Mitzrayim, he sent out our fathers first. And at the second time Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph, and called his father Yaakov to him, and all his kindred, 75 souls. So Yaakov went down into Mitzrayim, and died, he and our fathers, and were carried over into Shechem, and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham bought for a sum of money of the sons of Amor, the father of Shechem. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which Elohim had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Mitzrayim, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children, to the end that they might not live. In which time Moses was born, and was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up, and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Yasharel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him, and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that Elohim by his hand would deliver them. But they understood not. And the next day he showed himself unto them as they strove, and would have set them at one again, saying, Sirs, ye are brethren, why do ye wrong one to another? But he that did his neighbor wrong thrust him away, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Wilt thou kill me, as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday? Then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of Yahuwah, and a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight, and as he drew near to behold it, the voice of Yahuwah came unto him, saying, I am the Elohim of thy fathers, the Elohim of Avraham, and the Elohim of Yishak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. Then Moses trembled, and durst not behold. Then said Yahuwah to him, Put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Mitzrayim. This Moses whom they refused, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge, the same did Elohim send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush. He brought them out, after that he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Mitzrayim, and in the Red Sea, and in the wilderness 40 years. This is that Moses, which said unto the children of Yasharel, A prophet shall Yahuwah your Elohim raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall ye hear. This is he that was in the assembly in the wilderness, with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us, to whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turned back again into Mitzrayim, saying unto Aaron, Make us gods to go before us. For as for this Moses, which brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we wot not what is become of him. And they made a calf in those days, and offered sacrifice unto the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their own hands. Then Elohim turned, and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. O ye house of Yasharel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses, that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen, which also our fathers that came after brought in with Yahusha into the possession of the Gentiles, whom Elohim drave out before the face of our fathers, unto the days of David, who found favor before Elohim, and desired to find a tabernacle for the Elohim of Yaakov. But Shalomah built him a house. Howbeit, the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith Yahuwah? Or what is the place of my rest? Hath not my hand made all these things? Ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, ye do always resist the Ruach HaKodesh. As your fathers did, so do ye. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? And they have slain them which showed before of the coming of the Just One, of whom ye have been now the betrayers and murderers, who have received the Torah by the disposition of angels, and have not kept it. When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him with their teeth. But he, being full of the Ruach HaKodesh, looked up steadfastly into heaven, and saw the glory of Elohim, and Yahusha standing on the right hand of Elohim, and said, Behold, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Adam standing on the right hand of Elohim. Then they cried out with a loud voice, and stopped their ears, and ran upon him with one accord, and cast him out of the city, and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, whose name was Shaul. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon Elohim, and saying, Adonai Yahusha, receive my Ruach. And he kneeled down, and cried with a loud voice, Yahuwah, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Acts 8. And Shaul was consenting unto his death. And at that time there was a great persecution against the assembly, which was at Yerushalaim. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Yehud and Samaria, except the apostles. And devout men carried Stephen to his burial, and made great lamentation over him. As for Shaul, he made havoc of the assembly, entering into every house, and hailing men and women, committed them to prison. Therefore they that were scattered abroad went everywhere preaching the word. Then Philip went down to the city of Samaria, and preached Mashiach unto them. And the people with one accord gave heed unto those things which Philip spake, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did. For unclean ruachos, crying with loud voice, came out of many that were possessed with them, and many taken with palsies, and that were lame were healed. And there was great joy in that city. But there was a certain man called Shimon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that himself was some great one, to whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, This man is the great power of Elohim. And to him they had regard, because that of long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. But when they believed Philip preaching the things concerning the kingdom of Elohim, and the name of Yahusha HaMashiach, they were baptized, both men and women. Then Shimon himself believed also, and when he was baptized, he continued with Philip, and wondered, beholding the miracles and signs which were done. Now when the apostles which were at Yerushalaim heard that Samaria had received the word of Elohim, they sent unto them Kepha and Yehuchanan, who, when they were come down, prayed for them, that they might receive the Ruach HaKodesh. For as yet he was fallen upon none of them. Only they were baptized in the name of the Adonai Yahusha. Then laid they their hands on them, and they received the Ruach HaKodesh. And when Shimon saw that through laying on of the apostles' hands the Ruach HaKodesh was given, he offered them money, saying, Give me also this power, that on whomsoever I lay hands, he may receive the Ruach HaKodesh. But Kepha said unto him, Thy money perish with thee, because thou hast thought that the gift of Elohim may be purchased with money. Thou hast neither part nor lot in this matter,
for thy heart is not right in the sight of Elohim. Repent therefore of this thy wickedness, and pray Yah, if perhaps the thought of thine heart may be forgiven thee. For I perceive that thou art in the gall of bitterness, and in the bond of iniquity. Then answered Shimon, and said, Pray ye to Yahuwah for me, that none of these things which ye have spoken come upon me. And they, when they had testified and preached the word of Yahuwah, returned to Yerushalaim, and preached the Besserah in many villages of the Samaritans. And the angel of Yahuwah spake unto Philip, saying, Arise, and go toward the south, unto the way that goeth down from Yerushalaim unto Gaza, which is desert. And he arose and went, and, behold, a man of Cush, a eunuch of great authority, under Candace, queen of the Cushites, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Yerushalaim for to worship, was returning, and sitting in his chariot, reading Yeshayahu the prophet. Then the Ruach said unto Philip, Go near, and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him, and heard him read the prophet Yeshayahu, and said, Understandest thou what thou readest? And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. The place of the scripture which he read was this: He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and like a lamb dumb before his shearer, so opened he not his mouth. In his humiliation his judgment was taken away. And who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth. And the eunuch answered Philip, and said, I pray thee, of whom speaketh the prophet this? Of himself, or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth, and began at the same scripture, and preached unto him Yahusha. And as they went on their way, they came unto a certain water. And the eunuch said, See, here is water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? And Philip said, If thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe that Yahusha HaMashiach is the Son of Elohim. And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. And when they were come up out of the water, the Ruach of Yahuwah caught away Philip, that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing. But Philip was found at Azotus, and passing through he preached in all the cities, till he came to Caesarea. Acts 9. And Shaul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Adonai, went unto the high priest, and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Yerushalaim. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Shaul, Shaul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Adonai? And the Adonai said, I am Yahusha, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Adonai, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Adonai said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And Shaul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand, and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus, named Ananias, and to him said Yahuwah in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Adonai. And Yahuwah said unto him, Arise, and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Yehuda for one called Shaul of Tarsus. For, behold, he prayeth. and hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in, and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Adonai, I have heard by many of this man, how much evil he hath done to thy Kodeshim at Yerushalaim. And here he hath authority from the chief priests to bind all that call on thy name. But the Adonai said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Yasharel. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. And Ananias went his way, and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him, said, Brother Shaul, the Adonai, even Yahusha, that appeared unto thee in the way as thou camest, hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight, and be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith, and arose, and was baptized. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Then was Shaul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus. And straightway he preached Mashiach in the synagogues, that he is the Son of Elohim. But all that heard him were amazed, and said, Is not this he that destroyed them which called on this name in Yerushalaim, and came hither for that intent, that he might bring them bound unto the chief priests? But Shaul increased the more in strength, and confounded the Yahudim which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is very Mashiach. And after that many days were fulfilled, the Yahudim took counsel to kill him. But their laying await was known of Shaul, and they watched the gates day and night to kill him. Then the disciples took him by night, and let him down by the wall in a basket. And when Shaul was come to Yerushalaim, he essayed to join himself to the disciples, but they were all afraid of him, and believed not that he was a disciple. But Barnabas took him, and brought him to the apostles, and declared unto them how he had seen the Adonai in the way, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Yahusha. And he was with them coming in and going out at Yerushalaim. And he spake boldly in the name of the Adonai Yahusha, and disputed against the Yavanim, but they went about to slay him. Which, when the brethren knew, they brought him down to Caesarea, and sent him forth to Tarsus. Then had the assemblies rest throughout all Yehud and Galilee and Samaria, and were edified, and walking in the fear of Yahuwah, and in the comfort of the Ruach HaKodesh, were multiplied. And it came to pass, as Kepha passed throughout all quarters, he came down also to the Kodeshim which dwelt at Lydda. And there he found a certain man named Ananias, which had kept his bed 8 years, and was sick of the palsy. And Kepha said unto him, Ananias, Yahusha HaMashiach maketh thee whole. Arise, and make thy bed. And he arose immediately. And all that dwelt at Lod and Sharon saw him, and turned to Yahuwah. Now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Savia, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and alms deeds, which she did. And it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died, whom, when they had washed, they laid her in an upper chamber. Forasmuch as Lod was nigh to Joppa, and the disciples had heard that Kepha was there, they sent unto him 2 men, desiring him that he would not delay to come to them. Then Kepha arose and went with them. When he was come, they brought him into the upper chamber, and all the widows stood by him, weeping, and showing the coats and garments which Dorcas made, while she was with them. But Kepha put them all forth, and kneeled down, and prayed, and turning him to the body, said, Sevilla, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Kepha, she sat up. And he gave her his hand, and lifted her up, and when he had called the Kodeshim and widows, presented her alive. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in Yahuwah. And it came to pass that he tarried many days in Joppa with one Shimon, a tanner.
Acts 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band, a devout man, and one that feared Elohim with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to Elohim alway. He saw in a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of Elohim coming into him, and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid, and said, What is it, Adonai? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before Elohim. And now send men to Jaffa, and call for one Shimon, whose surname is Kepha. He lodgeth with one Shimon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And when the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called 2 of his household servants, and a devout soldier of them that waited on him continually. And when he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Jaffa. On the morrow, as they went on their journey, and drew nigh unto the city, Kepha went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry, and would have eaten. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance, and saw heaven opened, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the 4 corners, and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Kepha, kill and eat. But Kepha said, Not so, Adonai, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the 2nd time, What Elohim hath cleansed, that call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now when Kepha doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Shimon's house, and stood before the gate, and called, and asked whether Shimon, which was surnamed Kepha, were lodged there. While Kepha thought on the vision, the Ruach said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Arise therefore, and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Kepha went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, Behold, I am he whom ye seek. What is the cause wherefore ye are come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, and one that feareth Elohim, and of good report among all the nation of the Yahudim, was warned from Elohim by a holy angel to send for thee into his house, and to hear words of thee. Then called he them in, and lodged them. And on the morrow Kepha went away with them, and certain brethren from Jaffa accompanied him. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. And as Kepha was coming in, Cornelius met him, and fell down at his feet, and worshipped him. But Kepha took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in, and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Yahudi to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But Elohim hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for. I asked therefore for what intent ye have sent for me. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and, behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thine alms are had in remembrance in the sight of Elohim. Send therefore to Jaffa, and call hither Shimon, whose surname is Kepha. He is lodged in the house of one Shimon a tanner by the seaside, who, when he cometh, shall speak unto thee. Immediately therefore I sent to thee, and thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before Elohim, to hear all things that are commanded thee of Elohim. Then Kepha opened his mouth and said, Of a truth I perceive that Elohim is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. The word which Elohim sent unto the children of Yasharel, preaching shalom by Yahusha HaMashiach, he is Adonai of all. That word, I say, ye know, which was published throughout all Yehud, and began from Galilee after the baptism which Yehuchanan preached. How Elohim anointed Yahusha of Nazareth with the Ruach HaKodesh and with power, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for Elohim was with him. And we are witnesses of all things which he did, both in the land of the Yahudim and in Yerushalaim, whom they slew and hanged on a tree. Him Elohim raised up the third day, and showed him openly, not to all the people, but unto witnesses chosen before of Elohim, even to us, who did eat and drink with him after he rose from the dead. And he commanded us to preach unto the people, and to testify that it is he which was ordained of Yahuwah to be the judge of quick and dead. To him give all the prophets witness, that through his name whosoever believeth in him shall receive remission of sins. While Kepha yet spake these words, the Ruach HaKodesh fell on all them which heard the word. And they of the circumcision which believed were astonished, as many as came with Kepha, because that on the Gentiles also was poured out the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. For they heard them speak with tongues and magnify Yahuwah. Then answered Kepha, Can any man forbid water, that these should not be baptized, which have received the Ruach HaKodesh as well as we? And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of Yahuwah. Then prayed they him to tarry certain days. Acts 11. And the apostles and brethren that were in Yehud heard that the Gentiles had also received the word of Elohim. And when Kepha was come up to Yerushalaim, they that were of the circumcision contended with him, saying, Thou wentest in to men uncircumcised, and didst eat with them. But Kepha rehearsed the matter from the beginning, and expounded it by order unto them, saying, I was in the city of Jaffa, praying, and in a trance I saw a vision. A certain vessel descend as it had been a great sheet, let down from heaven by four corners, and it came even to me. Upon the which when I had fastened mine eyes, I considered, and saw four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And I heard a voice saying unto me, Arise, Kepha, slay and eat. But I said, Not so, Adonai, for nothing common or unclean hath at any time entered into my mouth. But the voice answered me again from heaven, What Elohim hath cleansed, that call not thou common. And this was done 3 times, and all were drawn up again into heaven. And, behold, immediately there were 3 men already come unto the house where I was, sent from Caesarea unto me. And the Ruach bade me go with them, nothing doubting. Moreover, these 6 brethren accompanied me, and we entered into the man's house. And he showed us how he had seen an angel in his house, which stood, and said unto him, Send men to Jaffa, and call for Shimon, whose surname is Kepha, who shall tell thee words, whereby thou and all thy house shall be saved. And as I began to speak, the Ruach HaKodesh fell on them, as on us at the beginning. Then remembered I the word of the Adonai, how that he said, Yehuchanan indeed baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh. Forasmuch then as Elohim gave them the like gift as he did unto us, who believed on the Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach, what was I, that I could withstand Elohim? When they heard these things, they held their peace, and glorified Yahuwah, saying, Then hath Elohim also to the Gentiles granted repentance unto life. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that rose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice, and Cyprus, and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Yahudim only. And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which, when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Yavanim, preaching the Adonai Yahusha. And the hand of Yahuwah was with them, and a great number believed, and turned unto Yahuwah. Then tidings of these things came unto the ears of the assembly, which was in Yerushalaim. And they sent forth Barnabas, that he should go as far as Antioch, who, when he came, and had seen the grace of Elohim, was glad, and exhorted them all, that with purpose of heart they would cleave unto Yahuwah. For he was a good man, and full of the Ruach HaKodesh and of faith. And much people was added unto Yahuwah. Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus, for to seek Shaul. And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the assembly, and taught much people. And the disciples were called Mashiachim first in Antioch. And in these days came prophets from Yerushalaim unto Antioch. And there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Ruach that there should be great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Yehud, which also they did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Shaul. Acts 12. Now about that time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the assembly, and he killed Yaakov, the brother of Yehuchanan, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Yahudim, he proceeded further to take Kepha also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison, and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers, to keep him, intending after Pesach, or Passover, to bring him forth to the people. Kepha therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the assembly unto Elohim for him. Now when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Kepha was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. And, behold, the angel of Yahuwah came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Kepha on the side, and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands. And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself, and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out, and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. When they were past the first and the second ward, they came unto the iron gate that leadeth unto the city, which opened to them of his own accord. And they went out, and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And when Kepha was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that Yahuwah has sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Yahudim. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Miriam, the mother of Yehuchanan, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. And as Kepha knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Kepha's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in, and told how Kepha stood before the gate. And they said unto her, Thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, It is his angel. But Kepha continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how Yahuwah had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go, show these things unto Yaakov and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place. Now as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Kepha. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers, and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Yehud to Caesarea, and there abode.
And Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon, but they came with one accord to him, and, having made Blastus the king's chamberlain their friend, desired peace, because their country was nourished by the king's country. And upon a set day, Herod, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne, and made an oration unto them. And the people gave a shout, saying, It is the voice of a god, and not of a man. And immediately the angel of Yahuwah smote him, because he gave not Yahuwah the glory. And he was eaten of worms, and gave up the Ruach. But the word of Yahuwah grew and multiplied. And Barnabas and Shaul returned from Yerushalaim, when they had fulfilled their ministry, and took with them Yehuchanan, whose surname was Marcos. Acts 13. And there were in the assembly that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas, and Shimon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Menachem, which had been brought up with Herod the tetrarch, and Shaul, as they ministered to Yahuwah, and fasted. The Ruach HaKodesh said, Separate me Barnabas and Shaul for the work whereunto I have called them. And when they had fasted and prayed, and laid their hands on them, they sent them away. So they, being sent forth by the Ruach HaKodesh, departed unto Seleucia, and from thence they sailed to Cyprus. And when they were at Salamis, they preached the word of Elohim in the synagogues of the Yehudim. And they had also Yehuchanan to their minister. And when they had gone through the isle unto Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Yehudi, whose name was Bar Yahusha, which was with the deputy of the country, Sergius Paulus, a prudent man, who called for Barnabas and Shaul, and desired to hear the word of Elohim. But Elymas the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, withstood them, seeking to turn away the deputy from the faith. Then Shaul, who also is called Paal, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, set his eyes on him, and said, O full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, wilt thou not cease to pervert the right ways of Yahuwah? And now, behold, the hand of Yahuwah is upon thee, and thou shalt be blind, not seeing the sun for a season. And immediately there fell on him a mist and a darkness, and he went about seeking some to lead him by the hand. Then the deputy, when he saw what was done, believed, being astonished at the doctrine of Yahuwah. Now when Paal and his company loosed from Paphos, they came to Perga and Pamphylia, and Yehuchanan, departing from them, returned to Yerushalaim. But when they departed from Perga, they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went into the synagogue on the Shabbat, and sat down. And after the reading of the Torah and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue said unto them, saying, Ye men and brethren, if ye have any word of exhortation for the people, say on. Then Paal stood up, and beckoning with his hand, said, Men of Yasharel, and ye that fear Elohim, give audience. The Elohim of this people of Yasharel chose our fathers, and exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Mitzrayim, and with a high arm brought he them out of it. And about the time of 40 years suffered he their manners in the wilderness. And when he had destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he divided their land to them by lot. And after that he gave unto them judges, about the space of 450 years, until Shemuel the prophet. And afterward they desired a king. And Elohim gave unto them Shaul, the son of Kish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, by the space of 40 years. And when he had removed him, he raised up unto them David to be their king, to whom also he gave testimony, and said, I have found David, the son of Yishai, a man after mine own heart, which shall fulfill all my will. Of this man's seed hath Elohim, according to his promise, raised unto Yasharel a Savior, Yahusha. When Yehuchanan had first preached before his coming the baptism of repentance to all the people of Yasharel, and as Yehuchanan fulfilled his course, He said, Whom think ye that I am? I am not he. But behold, there cometh one after me, whose shoes of his feet I am not worthy to loose. Men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, and whosoever among you feareth Elohim, to you is the word of this salvation sent. For they that dwell at Yerushalaim, and their rulers, because they knew him not, nor yet the voices of the prophets which are read every Shabbat, they have fulfilled them in condemning him. And though they found no cause of death in him, yet desired they Pilate that he should be slain. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree, and laid him in a sepulchre. But Elohim raised him from the dead. And he was seen many days of them which came up with him from Galilee to Yerushalaim, who are his witnesses unto the people. And we declare unto you glad tidings, how that the promise which was made unto the fathers, Elohim hath fulfilled the same unto us, their children, and that he hath raised up Yahusha again, as it is also written in the 2nd Psalm, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. And as concerning that he raised him up from the dead, now no more to return to corruption, he said on this wise, I will give you the sure mercies of David. Wherefore he saith also in another psalm, Thou shalt not suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. For David, after he had served his own generation by the will of Elohim, fell on sleep, and was laid unto his fathers, and saw corruption. But he, whom Elohim raised again, saw no corruption. Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins. And by him all that believe are justified from all things, from which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses. Beware therefore, lest that come upon you, which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder, and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And when the Yehudim were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Shabbat. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yehudim and religious proselytes followed Paal and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Elohim. And the next Shabbat came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Yahuwah. But when the Yehudim saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy, and spake against those things which were spoken by Paal, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paal and Barnabas waxed bold, and said, It was necessary that the word of Elohim should first have been spoken to you. But, seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. For so hath Yahuwah commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad, and glorified the word of Yahuwah, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believed. And the word of Yahuwah was published throughout all the region. But the Yehudim stirred up the devout and honorable women, and the chief men of the city, and raised persecution against Paal and Barnabas, and expelled them out of their coasts. But they shook off the dust of their feet against them, and came unto Iconium. And the disciples were filled with joy, and with the Ruach HaKodesh. Acts 14. And it came to pass in Iconium, that they went both together into the synagogue of the Yahudim, and so spake, that a great multitude both of the Yahudim and also of the Yavanim believed. But the unbelieving Yahudim stirred up the Gentiles, and made their minds evil affected against the brethren. Long time therefore abode they speaking boldly in Yahuwah, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and granted signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, and part held with the Yahudim, and part with the apostles. And when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Yehudim with their rulers, to use them despitefully and to stone them, they were aware of it, and fled unto Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and unto the region that lieth round about. And there they preached the Besorah. And there sat a certain man at Lystra, impotent in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb, who never had walked. The same heard Paal speak, who, steadfastly beholding him, and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, Stand upright on thy feet. And he leaped and walked. And when the people saw what Paal had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnavi Jupiter, and Paal Mercurius, because he was a chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people, which, when the apostles, Barnavi and Paal, heard of, they rent their clothes, and ran in among the people, crying out, and saying, Sirs, why do ye these things? We also are men of like passions with you, and preach unto you that ye should turn from these vanities unto the living Elohim, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all things that are therein, who in times past suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good, and gave us rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings scarce restrained they the people, that they had not done sacrifice unto them. And there came thither certain Yehudim from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and, having stoned Paal, drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. Howbeit, as the disciples stood round about him, he rose up, and came into the city, and the next day he departed with Barnavi to Derbe. And when they had preached the Besorah to that city, and had taught many, they returned again to Lystra, and to Iconium, and Antioch, confirming the souls of the disciples, and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of Yahuwah. And when they had ordained them elders in every assembly, and had prayed with fasting, they commended them to Yahuwah, on whom they believed. And after they had passed throughout Pisidia, they came to Pamphylia. And when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down into Attalia, and thence sailed to Antioch, from whence they had been recommended to the grace of Yahuwah for the work which they fulfilled. And when they were come, and had gathered the assembly together, they rehearsed all that Yahuwah had done with them, and how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles. And there they abode long time with the disciples.
Acts 15. And certain men which came down from Yehud taught the brethren, and said, Except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moshe, ye cannot be saved. When therefore Paal and Barnavi had no small dissension and disputation with them, they determined that Paal and Barnavi and certain other of them should go up to Yerushalaim unto the apostles and elders about this question. And, being brought on their way by the assembly, they passed through Phoenice and Samaria, declaring the conversion of the Gentiles, and they caused great joy unto all the brethren. And when they were come to Yerushalaim, they were received of the assembly, and of the apostles and elders, and they declared all things that Yahuwah had done with them. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them, and to command them to keep the law of Moshe. And the apostles and elders came together for to consider of this matter. And when they had been much disputing, Kepha rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago Elohim made choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. And Elohim, which knoweth the hearts, bare them witness, giving them the Ruach HaKodesh, even as he did unto us, and put no difference between us and them,
purifying their hearts by faith. Now therefore, why tempt ye Elohim to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? But we believe that through the grace of the Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach we shall be saved, even as they. Then all the multitude kept silence, and gave audience to Barnabas and Paal, declaring what miracles and wonders Elohim had wrought among the Gentiles by them. And after they had held their peace, Yaakov answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Shimon hath declared how Elohim at the first did visit the Gentiles, to take out of them a people for his name. And to this agree the words of the prophets, as it is written, After this I will return, and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. And I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after Yahuwah, and all the Gentiles, upon whom my name is called, saith Yahuwah, who doeth all these things. Known unto Elohim are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence is, that we trouble them not, which from among the Gentiles are turned to Elohim, but that we write unto them, that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moshe of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Shabbat. Then pleased it the apostles and elders, with the whole assembly, to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch, with Paal and Barnabas, namely Yehuda, surnamed Barshava, and Silah, chief men among the brethren. And they wrote letters by them after this manner. The apostles and elders and brethren send greeting unto the brethren which are of the Gentiles in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia. Forasmuch as we have heard that certain which went out from us have troubled you with words, subverting your souls, saying, Ye must be circumcised, and keep the law, to whom we gave no such commandment. It seemed good unto us, being assembled with one accord, to send chosen men unto you with our beloved Barnabas and Paal, men that have hazarded their lives for the name of our Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach. We have sent therefore Yehuda and Silah, who shall also tell you the same things by mouth, for it seemed good to the Ruach HaKodesh and to us, to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things, that ye abstain from meat offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication. From which if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well. Fare ye well. So when they were dismissed, they came to Antioch, and when they had gathered the multitude together, they delivered the epistle, which when they had read, they rejoiced for the consolation. And Yehuda and Silah, being prophets also themselves, exhorted the brethren with many words, and confirmed them. And after they had tarried there a space, they were let go in peace from the brethren unto the apostles. Notwithstanding, it pleased Silah to abide there still. Paal also and Barnabas continued in Antioch, teaching and preaching the word of Yahuwah, and many others also. And some days after, Paal said unto Barnabas, Let us go again and visit our brethren in every city where we have preached the word of Yahuwah, and see how they do. And Barnabas determined to take with them Yehuchanan, whose surname was Mark. But Paal thought not good to take him with them, who departed from them from Pamphylia, and went not with them to the work. And the contention was so sharp between them, that they departed asunder one from the other. And so Barnabas took Mark, and sailed unto Cyprus. And Paal chose Silah, and departed, being recommended by the brethren unto the grace of Yahuwah. And he went through Syria and Cilicia, confirming the assemblies. Acts 16. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there, named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Yehudi, and believed, but his father was a Yavani, which was well reported of by the brethren that were at Lystra and Iconium. Him would Paal have to go forth with him, and took and circumcised him because of the Yehudim, which were in those quarters, for they knew all that his father was a Yavani. And as they went through the cities, they delivered them the decrees for to keep, that were ordained of the apostles and elders which were at Yerushalaim. And so were the assemblies established in the faith, and increased in numbers daily. Now when they had gone throughout Phrygia and the region of Galatia, and were forbidden of the Ruach HaKodesh to preach the word in Asia, after they were come to Mysia, they essayed to go into Bithynia, but the Ruach suffered them not. And they passing by Mysia came down to Troas, and a vision appeared to Paal in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia, and prayed him, saying, Come over into Macedonia, and help us. And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that Yahuwah had called for us to preach the gospel unto them. Therefore, loosing from Troas, we came with a straight course to Samothracia, and the next day to Neapolis, and from thence to Philippi, which is the chief city of that part of Macedonia, and a colony. And we were in that city abiding certain days. And on the Shabbat we went out of the city by a riverside, where prayer was wont to be made. And we sat down and spake unto the women which resorted thither. And a certain woman named Lydia, a seller of purple, of the city of Thyatira, which worshipped Elohim, heard us, whose heart Yahuwah opened, that she attended unto the things which were spoken of Paal. And when she was baptized, and her household, she besought us, saying, If ye have judged me to be faithful to Yahuwah, come into my house, and abide there. And she constrained us. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the ruach of divination of Python met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paal and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High Elohim, which show unto us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. But Paal, being grieved, turned and said to the Ruach, I command thee in the name of Yahusha HaMashiach to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. And when her masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paal and Silah, and drew them into the marketplace unto the rulers, and brought them to the magistrates, saying, These men, being Yahudim, do exceedingly trouble our city, and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes, and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison, and made their feet fast in the stocks. And at midnight Paul and Silah prayed and sang praises unto Elohim, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. And the keeper of the prison, awaking out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword, and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. But Paal cried with a loud voice, saying, Do thyself no harm, for we are all here. Then he called for a light, and sprang in, and came trembling, and fell down before Paal and Silah, and brought them out, and said, Sirs, what must I do to be saved? And they said, Believe on the Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach, and thou shalt be saved, and thy house. And they spake unto him the word of Yahuwah, and to all that were in his house. And he took them the same hour of the night, and washed their stripes, and was baptized, he and all his, straightway. And when he had brought them into his house, he set meat before them, and rejoiced, believing in Yahuwah with all his house. And when it was day, the magistrate sent the sergeants, saying, Let those men go. And the keeper of the prison told this saying to Paal, The magistrates have sent to let you go. Now therefore depart, and go in peace. But Paal said unto them, They have beaten us openly uncondemned, being Romans, and have cast us into prison. And now do they thrust us out privily? Nay, verily, but let them come themselves and fetch us out. And the sergeants told these words unto the magistrates, and they feared when they heard that they were Romans. And they came and besought them, and brought them out, and desired them to depart out of the city. And they went out of the prison, and entered into the house of Lydia. And when they had seen the brethren, they comforted them, and departed.
Acts 17.
Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Saloniki, where was a synagogue of the Yahudim. And Paal, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures, opening and alleging that Mashiach must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and that this Yahusha, whom I preach unto you, is Mashiach. And some of them believed, and consorted with Paal and Silah, and of the devout Yavanim a great multitude, and of the chief women not a few. But the Yahudim which believed not, moved with envy, took unto them certain lewd fellows of the baser sort, and gathered a company, and set all the city on an uproar, and assaulted the house of Jason, and sought to bring them out to the people. And when they found them not, they drew Jason and certain brethren unto the rulers of the city, crying, These that have turned the world upside down are come hither also, whom Jason hath received, and these all do contrary to the decrees of Kaiser, saying that there is another king, one Yahusha. And they troubled the people and the rulers of the city when they heard these things. And when they had taken security of Jason and of the other, they let them go. And the brethren immediately sent away Paal and Silah by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of the Yahudim. These were more noble than those in Saloniki, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the Scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Therefore many of them believed, also of honorable women, which were Yavanim, and of men not a few. But when the Yahudim of Saloniki had knowledge that the word of Elohim was preached of Paal at Berea, they came thither also, and stirred up the people. And then immediately the brethren sent away Paal to go as it were to the sea. But Silah and Timotheus abode there still. And they that conducted Paal brought him unto Athens, and receiving a commandment unto Silah and Timotheus for to come to him with all speed, they departed. Now while Paal waited for them at Athens, his ruach was stirred in him, when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Yahudim, and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him, and some said, What will this babbler say? Others some, He seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached unto them Yahusha and the resurrection. And they took him, and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, May we know what this new doctrine, whereof thou speakest, is? For thou bringest certain strange things to our ears. We would know therefore what these things mean. For all the Athenians and strangers which were there spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. Then Paal stood in the midst of Mars hill, and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by, and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown Theos. Whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. Elohim that made the world, and all things therein, seeing that he is Adonai of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worship with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek Yahuwah, if haply they might feel after him, and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. For in him we live, and move, and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Forasmuch then as we are the offspring of Elohim, we ought not to think that the Elohim is like unto gold, or silver, or stone, graven by art and man's device. In the times of this ignorance Elohim winked at, but now commandeth all men everywhere to repent, because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness, by that man whom he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurances unto all men, and that he hath raised him from the dead. And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, and others said, We will hear thee again of this matter. So Paal departed from among them. Howbeit certain men clave unto him, and believed, among the which was Dionysius the Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them.
Acts 18. After these things, Paal departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Yehudi named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Yehudim to depart from Rome, and came unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Shabbat, and persuaded the Yehudim and the Yavanim. And when Sila and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paal was pressed in the Ruach, and testified to the Yehudim that Yahusha was Mashiach. And when they opposed themselves and blasphemed, he shook his raiment, and said unto them, Your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From henceforth I will go unto the Gentiles. And he departed thence, and entered into a certain man's house, named Eustace, one that worshipped Elohim, whose house joined hard to the synagogue. And Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed on Yahuwah with all his house, and many of the Corinthians hearing believed, and were baptized. Then spake Yahuwah to Paal in the night by a vision, Be not afraid, but speak, and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee, for I have much people in this city. And he continued there 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of Elohim among them. And when Gallio was a deputy of Achaia, the Yehudim made insurrection with one accord against Paal, and brought him to the judgment seat, saying, This fellow persuadeth men to worship Elohim contrary to the law. And when Paal was now about to open his mouth, Gallio said unto the Yehudim, If it were a matter of wrong or wicked lewdness, O ye Yehudim, reason would that I should bear with you. But if it be a question of words and names, and of your law, look ye to it, for I will be no judge of such matters. And he drave them from the judgment seat. Then all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the chief ruler of the synagogue, and beat him before the judgment seat. And Gallio cared for none of those things. And Paal after this tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Cenchrea, for he had a vow. And he came to Ephesus, and left them there. But he himself entered into the synagogue, and reasoned with the Yehudim. When they desired him to tarry longer time with them, he consented not, but bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Yerushalaim, but I will return again unto you, if Yahuwah will. And he sailed from Ephesus. And when he had landed at Caesarea, and gone up and saluted the assembly, he went down to Antioch. And after he had spent some time there, he departed, and went over all the country of Galatia and Phrygia in order, strengthening all the disciples. And a certain Yehudi named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man, and mighty in the Scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of Yahuwah, and being fervent in the Ruach, he spake and taught diligently the things of Yahuwah, knowing only the baptism of Yehuchanan.
And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom, when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of Elohim more perfectly. And when he was disposed to pass into Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples to receive him, who, when he was come, helped them much which had believed through grace. For he mightily convinced the Yehudim, and that publicly, showing by the Scriptures that Yahusha was Mashiach.
Acts 19. And it came to pass that while Apollos was at Corinth, Paal, having passed through the upper coast, came to Ephesus. And finding certain disciples, he said unto them, Have ye received the Ruach HaKodesh since ye believed? And they said unto him, We have not so much as heard whether there be any Ruach HaKodesh. And he said unto them, Unto what then were ye baptized? And they said, Unto Yehochanan's baptism. Then said Paal, Yehochanan verily baptized with the baptism of repentance, saying unto the people that they should believe on him which should come after him, that is, on Mashiach Yahusha. When they heard this, they were baptized in the name of the Adonai Yahusha. And when Paal had laid his hands upon them, the Ruach HaKodesh came on them, and they spake with tongues and prophesied. And all the men were about 12. And he went into the synagogue, and spake boldly for the space of 3 months, disputing and persuading the things concerning the kingdom of Elohim. But when divers were hardened, and believed not, but spake evil of that way before the multitude, he departed from them, and separated the disciples, disputing daily in the school of one Tyrannus. And this continued by the space of 2 years, so that all they which dwelt in Asia heard the word of the Adonai Yahusha, both Yehudim and Yavanim. And Elohim wrought special miracles by the hands of Paal, so that from his body were brought unto the sick handkerchiefs or aprons, and the diseases departed from them, and the evil ruachoth went out of them. Then certain of the vagabond Yehudim, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil ruachoth the name of the Adonai Yahusha, saying, We adjure you by Yahusha, whom Paal preacheth. And there were 7 sons of one Sceva, a Yehudi, and chief of the priests, which did so. And the evil Ruach answered and said, Yahusha I know, and Paal I know, but who are ye? And the man in whom the evil Ruach was leaped on them, and overcame them, and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of that house naked and wounded. And this was known to all the Yehudim and Yavanim also dwelling at Ephesus. And fear fell on them all, and the name of the Adonai Yahusha was magnified. And many that believed came and confessed, and showed their deeds. Many of them also which used curious arts brought their books together, and burned them before all men. And they counted the price of them, and found it 50,000 pieces of silver. So mightily grew the word of Yahuwah, and prevailed. After these things were ended, Paal purposed in the Ruach, when he had passed through Macedonia and Achaia, to go to Yerushalaim, saying, After I have been there, I must also see Rome. So he sent into Macedonia 2 of them that ministered unto him, Timotheus and Erastus, but he himself stayed in Asia for a season. And the same time there arose no small stir about that way. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen, whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our wealth. Moreover ye see and hear, that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paal hath persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands. So that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth.
And when they heard these sayings, they were full of wrath, and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians! And the whole city was filled with confusion. And having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paal's companions in travel, they rushed with one accord into the theater. And when Paal would have entered in unto the people, the disciples suffered him not. And certain of the chief of Asia, which were his friends, said unto him, desiring him that he would not adventure himself into the theater. Some therefore cried one thing, and some another, for the assembly was confused, and the more part knew not wherefore they were come together. And they drew Alexander out of the multitude, the Yahudim putting him forward. And Alexander beckoned with the hand, and would have made his defense unto the people. But when they knew that he was a Yehudi, all with one voice about the space of 2 hours cried out, Great is Diana of the Ephesians! And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter? Seeing then that these things cannot be spoken against, ye ought to be quiet, and to do nothing rashly. For ye have brought hither these men, which are neither robbers of temples, nor yet blasphemers of your goddess. Wherefore, if Demetrius and the craftsmen which are with him have a matter against any man, the law is open, and there are deputies. Let them implead one another. But if ye inquire anything concerning other matters, it shall be determined in a lawful assembly. For we are in danger to be called in question for this day's uproar, there being no cause whereby we may give an account of this concourse. And when he had thus spoken, he dismissed the assembly. Acts 20. And after the uproar was ceased, Paal called unto him the disciples, and embraced them, and departed for to go into Macedonia. And when he had gone over those parts, and had given them much exhortation, he came into Greece, and there abode 3 months. And when the Yahudim laid wait for him, as he was about to sail into Syria, he purposed to return through Macedonia. And there accompanied him into Asia Sopater of Berea, and of the Thessalonians Aristarchus and Secundus, and Gaius of Derbe, and Timotheus, and of Asia Tychicus and Trophimus. These going before tarried for us at Troas. And we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. And upon the first Shabbat, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paal preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber, where they were gathered together. And there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paal was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep, and fell down from the 3rd loft, and was taken up dead. And Paal went down, and fell on him, and embracing him, said, Trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. When he therefore was come up again, and had broken bread, and eaten, and talked a long while, even till break of day, so he departed. And they brought the young man alive, and were not a little comforted. And we went before to ship, and sailed unto Assos, there intending to take in Paal, for so had he appointed, minding himself to go afoot. And when he met with us at Assos, we took him in, and came to Mytilene. And we sailed thence, and came the next day over against Chios. And the next day we arrived at Samos, and tarried at Trogyllium. And the next day we came to Miletum. For Paal had determined to sail by Ephesus, because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Yerushalaim the day of Shavuot. And from Miletus he sent to Ephesus, and called the elders of the assembly. And when they were come to him, he said unto them, Ye know, from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner I have been with you at all seasons, serving Yahuwah with all humility of mind, and with many tears, and temptations, which befell me by the lying in wait of the Yahudim, and how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you, but have showed you, and have taught you publicly and from house to house, testifying both to the Yahudim and also to the Yavanim, repentance toward Elohim, and faith toward our Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach. And now, behold, I go bound in the Ruach unto Yerushalaim, not knowing the things that shall befall me there, save that the Ruach HaKodesh witnesseth in every city, saying that bonds and afflictions abide me. But none of these things move me, neither count I my life dear unto myself, so that I might finish my course with joy, and the ministry which I have received of the Adonai Yahusha, to testify the Besorah of the grace of Yahuwah. And now, behold, I know that ye all, among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of Elohim, shall see my face no more. Wherefore I take you to record this day, that I am pure from the blood of all men, for I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of Yahuwah. Take heed therefore unto yourselves, and to all the flock, over the which the Ruach HaKodesh hath made you overseers, to feed the assembly of Elohim, which he hath purchased with his own blood. For I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. Also of your own selves shall men arise, speaking perverse things, to draw away disciples after them. Therefore watch and remember that by the space of 3 years I cease not to warn every one night and day with tears. And now, brethren, I commend you to Elohim and to the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and to give you an inheritance among all them which are sanctified. I have coveted no man's silver or gold or apparel. Yea, ye yourselves know that these hands have ministered unto my necessities, and to them that were with me. I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak, and to remember the words of the Adonai Yahusha, how he said, It is more blessed to give than to receive. And when he had thus spoken, he kneeled down and prayed with them all. And they all wept sore, and fell on Paul's neck, and kissed him, sorrowing most of all for the words which he spake, that they should see his face no more. And they accompanied him unto the ship. Acts 21. And it came to pass, that after we were gotten from them, and had launched, we came with a straight course unto Cus, and the day following unto Rhodes, and from thence unto Patara. And finding a ship sailing over unto Phoenicia, we went aboard, and set forth. Now when we had discovered Cyprus, we left it on the left hand, and sailed into Syria, and landed at Tyre, for there the ship was to unlade her burden. And finding disciples, we tarried there 7 days, who said to Paal through the Ruach, that he should not go up to Yerushalaim. And when we had accomplished those days, we departed and went our way, and they all brought us on our way, with wives and children, till we were out of the city, and we kneeled down on the shore and prayed. And when we had taken our leave one of another, we took ship, and they returned home again. And when we had finished our course from Tyre, we came to Ptolemais, and saluted the brethren, and abode with them 1 day. And the next day, we that were of Paal's company departed, and came unto Caesarea, and we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist, which was one of the 7, and abode with him. And the same man had 4 daughters, virgins, which did prophesy. And as we tarried there many days, there came down from Yehud a certain prophet, named Agabus. And when he was come unto us, he took Paal's girdle, and bound his own hands and feet, and said, Thus saith the Ruach HaKodesh, So shall the Yahudim at Yerushalaim bind the man that owneth this girdle, and shall deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles. And when we heard these things, both we and they of that place besought him not to go up to Yerushalaim. Then Paal answered, What mean ye to weep, and to break mine heart? For I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Yerushalaim, for the name of the Adonai Yahusha. And when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, The will of Yahuwah be done. And after those days we took up our carriages, and went up to Yerushalaim. There went with us also certain of the disciples of Caesarea, and brought with them one Nason of Cyprus, an old disciple, with whom we should lodge. And when we were come to Yerushalaim, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Paal went in with us unto Yaakov, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Elohim had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified Yahuwah, and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Yehudim there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the Torah. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Yehudim, which are among the Gentiles, to forsake Moshe, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Do therefore this that we say to thee. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. Them take, and purify thyself with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads. And all may know that those things, whereof they were informed concerning thee, are nothing. But that thou thyself also walkest orderly, and keepest the Torah. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. Then Paal took the men, and the next day purifying himself with them, entered into the temple, to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Yehudim which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people, and laid hands on him, crying out, Men of Yasharel, help! This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people, and the Torah, and this place. And further brought Yavanim also into the temple, and hath polluted this holy place. For they had seen before with him in the city of Trophimus an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paal had brought into the temple. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paal, and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came unto the chief captain of the band, that all Yerushalaim was in an uproar, who immediately took soldiers and centurions, and ran down unto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paal. Then the chief captain came near, and took him, and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and demanded who he was, and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another, among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty for the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle. And when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was borne of the soldiers for the violence of the people. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, Away with him! And as Paal was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar, and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paal said, I am a man which am a Yehudi of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. And when he had given him license, Paal stood on the stairs, and beckoned with the hand unto the people. And when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying,
Acts 22. Men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense which I make now unto you. And when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. And he saith, I am verily a man which am a Yehudi, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the Torah of the fathers, and was zealous toward Yahuwah, as ye all are this day. And I persecuted this way unto the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest doth bear me witness.
and all the estate of the elders, from whom also I received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus, to bring them which were there bound unto Yerushalaim, for to be punished. And it came to pass, that, as I made my journey, and was come nigh unto Damascus about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me, and I fell unto the ground, and heard a voice saying unto me, Shaul, Shaul, why persecutest thou me? And I answered, Who art thou, Adonai? And he said unto me, I am Yahusha of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. And they that were with me saw indeed the light, and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. And I said, What shall I do, Adonai? And the Adonai said unto me, Arise, and go into Damascus, and there it shall be told thee of all things which are appointed for thee to do. And when I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of them that were with me, I came into Damascus. And one Hananiah, a devout man according to the Torah, having a good report of all the Yahudim which dwelt there, came unto me, and stood, and said unto me, Brother Shaul, receive thy sight. And the same hour I looked up upon him. And he said, The Elohim of our fathers hath chosen thee, that thou shouldest know his will, and see that just one, and shouldest hear the voice of his mouth. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. And now why tarriest thou? Arise, and be baptized, and wash away thy sins, calling on the name of Yahuwah. And it came to pass, that, when I was come again to Yerushalaim, even while I prayed in the temple, I was in a trance, and saw him saying unto me, Make haste, and get thee quickly out of Yerushalaim, for they will not receive thy testimony concerning me. And I said, Adonai, they know that I imprisoned and beat in every synagogue them that believed on thee. And when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, I also was standing by, and consenting unto his death, and kept the raiment of them that slew him. And he said unto me, Depart, for I will send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. And they gave him audience unto this word, and then lifted up their voices, and said, Away with such a fellow from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. And as they cried out, and cast off their clothes, and threw dust into the air, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle, and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. And as they bound him with thongs, Paal said unto the centurion that stood by, Is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, Take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. Then the chief captain came, and said unto him, Tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, Yea. And the chief captain answered, With a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paal said, But I was free-born. Then straightway they departed from him which should have examined him. And the chief captain also was afraid, after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. On the morrow, because he would have known the certainty wherefore he was accused of the Yahudim, he loosed from his bands, and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paal down, and set him before them. Acts 23. And Paal, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before Elohim until this day. And the high priest, Hananiah, commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. Then said Paal unto him, Elohim shall smite thee, thou whited wall, for sittest thou to judge me after the Torah, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the Torah? And they that stood by said, Revilest thou, Elohim's high priest? Then said Paal, I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest. For it is written, Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. But when Paal perceived that the one part were Sadakim, and the other part Parashim, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead am I called in question. And when he had so said, there arose a dissension between the Parashim and the Sadakim, and the multitude was divided. For the Sadakim say that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor Ruach, but the Parashim confess both. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Parashim's part arose and strove, saying, We find no evil in this man, but if a Ruach or an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against Elohim. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paal should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down and to take him by force from among them, and to bring him into the castle. And the night following, the Adonai stood by him, and said, Be of good cheer, Paal, for as thou hast testified of me in Yerushalaim, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. And when it was day, certain of the Yahudim banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paal. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. And they came to the chief priests and elders, and said, We have bound ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paal. Now therefore, ye with the council signify to the chief captain, that he bring him down unto you tomorrow, as though ye would inquire something more perfectly concerning him. And we, or ever he come near, are ready to kill him. And when Paal's sister's son heard of their lying in wait, he went and entered into the castle, and told Paal. Then Paal called one of the centurions unto him, and said, Bring this young man unto the chief captain, for he hath a certain thing to tell him. So he took him, and brought him to the chief captain, and said, Paal the prisoner called me unto him, and prayed me to bring this young man unto thee, who has something to say unto thee. Then the chief captain took him by the hand, and went with him aside privately, and asked him, What is that thou hast to tell me? And he said, The Yahudim have agreed to desire thee, that thou wouldest bring down Paal tomorrow into the council, as though they would inquire somewhat of him more perfectly. But do not thou yield unto them, for there lie in wait for him of them more than 40 men, which have bound themselves with an oath, that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now are they ready, looking for a promise from thee. So the chief captain then let the young man depart, and charged him, See thou tell no man that thou hast showed these things to me. And he called unto him 2 centurions, saying, Make ready 200 soldiers to go to Caesarea, and horsemen 70, and spearmen 200, at the 3rd hour of the night. And provide them beasts, that they may set Paal on, and bring him safe unto Felix the governor. And he wrote a letter after this manner, Claudius Lysias, unto the most excellent governor Felix, sendeth greeting. This man was taken of the Yahudim, and should have been killed of them. Then came I with an army, and rescued him, having understood that he was a Roman. And when I would have known the cause wherefore they accused him, I brought him forth into their council, whom I perceived to be accused of questions of their law, but to have nothing laid to his charge worthy of death or of bonds. And when it was told me how that the Yahudim laid wait for the man, I sent straightway to thee, and gave commandment to his accusers also, to say before thee what they had against him. Farewell. Then the soldiers, as it was commanded them, took Paal and brought him by night to Antipatris. On the morrow they left the horsemen to go with him, and returned to the castle, who, when they came to Caesarea, and delivered the epistle to the governor, presented Paal also before him. And when the governor had read the letter, he asked of what province he was. And when he understood that he was of Cilicia, I will hear thee, said he, when thine accusers are also come. And he commanded him to be kept in Herod's judgment hall. Acts 24. And after 5 days, Hananiah the high priest descended with the elders, and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paal. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence, we accept it always, and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Notwithstanding, that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us of thy clemency a few words. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all the Yehudim throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took, and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. And the Yehudim also assented, saying that these things were so. Then Paal, after that the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, Forasmuch as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because that thou mayest understand, that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Yerushalaim for to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues, nor in the city. Neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the Elohim of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets, and have hope toward Elohim, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and unjust. And herein do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward Elohim and toward men. Now after many years I came to bring alms to my nation, and offerings. Whereupon certain Yehudim from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with tumult, who ought to have been here before thee, and object, if they had aught against me. Or else let these same here say, if they have found any evil doing in me, while I stood before the council. Except it be for this one voice, that I cried standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, I am called in question by you this day. And when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them, and said, When Lysias the chief captain shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter. And he commanded a centurion to keep Paal, and to let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come unto him. And after certain days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Yehudi, he sent for Paal, and heard him concerning the faith in Mashiach. And as he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled, and answered, Go thy way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for thee. He hoped also that money should have been given him of Paal, that he might loose him. Wherefore he sent for him the oftener, and communed with him. But after 2 years, Porcius Festus came into Felix's room, and Felix, willing to show the Yehudim a pleasure, left Paal bound. Acts 25. Now when Festus was come into the province, after 3 days he ascended from Caesarea to Yerushalaim. Then the high priest and the chief of the Yehudim informed him against Paal, and besought him, and desired favor against him, that he would send for him to Yerushalaim, laying wait in the way to kill him. But Festus answered that Paal should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself would depart shortly thither. Let them therefore, said he, which among you are able, go down with me, and accuse this man, if there be any wickedness in him. And when he had tarried among them more than 10 days, he went down unto Caesarea, and the next day sitting on the judgment seat commanded Paal to be brought. And when he was come, the Yehudim which came down from Yerushalaim stood round about, and laid many and grievous complaints against Paal, which they could not prove. While he answered for himself, Neither against the law of the Yehudim, neither against the temple, nor yet against Caesar have I offended anything at all. But Festus, willing to do the Yehudim a pleasure, answered Paal, and said, Wilt thou go up to Yerushalaim, and there be judged of these things before me? Then said Paal, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Yehudim have I done no wrong, as thou very well knowest. For if I be an offender, or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. But if there be none of these things whereof these accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar. Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, Hast thou appealed unto Caesar? Unto Caesar shalt thou go. And after certain days, King Agrippa and Bernice came unto Caesarea to salute Festus. And when they had been there many days, Festus declared Paal's cause unto the king, saying, There is a certain man left in bonds by Felix, about whom, when I was at Yerushalaim, the chief priests and the elders of the Yehudim informed me, desiring to have judgment against him. To whom I answered, It is not the manner of the Romans to deliver any man to die, before that he which is accused have the accusers face to face, and have license to answer for himself concerning the crime laid against him. Therefore, when they were come hither, without any delay on the morrow I sat on the judgment seat, and commanded the man to be brought forth, against whom, when the accusers stood up, they brought none accusation of such things as I supposed, but had certain questions against him of their own superstition, and of one Yahusha, which was dead, whom Paal affirmed to be alive. And because I doubted of such manner of questions, I asked him whether he would go to Yerushalaim, and there be judged of these matters. But when Paal had appealed to be reserved unto the hearing of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I might send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said unto Festus, I would also hear the man myself. Tomorrow, said he, thou shalt hear him. And on the morrow, when Agrippa was come, and Bernice, with great pomp, and was entered into the place of hearing, with the chief captains and principal men of the city, at Festus's commandment, Paal was brought forth. And Festus said, King Agrippa, and all men which are here present with us, ye see this man, about whom all the multitude of the Yehudim have dealt with me, both at Yerushalaim and also here, crying that he ought not to live any longer. But when I found that he had committed nothing worthy of death, and that he himself hath appealed to Augustus, I have determined to send him, of whom I have no certain thing to write unto my Lord. Wherefore I have brought him forth before you, and specially before thee, O King Agrippa, that, after examination had, I might have somewhat to write. For it seemeth to me unreasonable to send a prisoner, and not withal to signify the crimes laid against him. Acts 26. Then Agrippa said unto Paal, Thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paal stretched forth the hand, and answered for himself. I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself this day before thee touching all the things whereof I am accused of the Yehudim, especially because I know thee to be expert in all customs and questions which are among the Yehudim. Wherefore I beseech thee to hear me patiently. My manner of life from my youth, which was at the first among mine own nation at Yerushalaim, know all the Yehudim, which knew me from the beginning, if they would testify, that after the most straitest sect of our religion I lived a Pharisee. And now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of Elohim unto our fathers, unto which promise our 12 tribes, instantly serving Elohim day and night, hope to come. For which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Yehudim. Why should it be thought a thing incredible with you that Elohim should raise the dead? I verily thought with myself that I ought to do many things contrary to the name of Yahusha of Nazareth, which thing I also did in Yerushalaim. And many of the Kodeshim did I shut up in prison, having received authority from the chief priests, and when they were put to death, I gave my voice against them. And I punished them oft in every synagogue, and compelled them to blaspheme, and being exceedingly mad against them, I persecuted them even unto strange cities. Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, and saying in the Hebrew tongue, Shaul, Shaul, why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And I said, Who art thou, Adonai? And he said, I am Yahusha, whom thou persecutest. But rise, and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness, both of these things which thou hast seen, and of those things in the which I will appear unto thee, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I send thee, to open their eyes, and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto Elohim, that they may receive forgiveness of sins, and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. Whereupon, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient unto the heavenly vision, but showed first unto them of Damascus, and at Yerushalaim, and throughout all the coasts of Yahud, and then to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to Elohim, and do works meet for repentance. For these causes the Yahudim caught me in the temple, and went about to kill me. Having therefore obtained help of Elohim, I continue unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other things than those which the prophet and Moses did say should come, that Mashiach should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. And as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paal, thou art beside thyself. Much learning doth make thee mad. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely, for I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him, for this thing was not done in a corner. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest. Then Agrippa said unto Paal, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Mashiachim. And Paal said, I would to Elohim, that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day, were both almost and altogether such as I am, except these bonds. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with them. And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, This man doeth nothing worthy of death or of bonds. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, This man might have been set at liberty, if he had not appealed unto Caesar. Acts 27. And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paal and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus's band. And entering into a ship at Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia, one Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Saloniki, being with us. And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paal, and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. And when we had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria, sailing into Italy, and he put us therein. And when we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete, over against Salmone, and, hardly passing it, came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh whereunto was a city of Lasea. Now when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paal admonished them, and said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only of the lading and ship, but also of our lives. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which were spoken by Paal. And because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they might attain to Phenice, and there to winter, which is a haven of Crete, and lieth toward the southwest and northwest. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, loosing thence, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. And when the ship was caught, and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive. And running under a certain island, which is called Cloda, we had much work to come by the boat, which when they had taken up, they used helps, undergirding the ship, and fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands, strake sail, and so were driven. And we, being exceedingly tossed with a tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. And the third day we cast out with our own hands the tackling of the ship. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. But after long abstinence, Paal stood forth in the midst of them, and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. For there stood by me this night the angel of Elohim, whose I am, and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paal, thou must be brought before Caesar. And, lo, Elohim hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe Elohim, that it shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down in Adria, about midnight the shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country, and sounded, and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again, and found it 15 fathoms. Then fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern, and wished for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea, under color as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Paal said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat, and let her fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paal besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not a hair fall from the head of any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread, and gave thanks to Elohim in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And we were in all in the ship 260 souls. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship, and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosed the rudder bands, and hoised up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward shore. And falling into a place where 2 seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast, and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, willing to save Paal, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land, and the rest, some on boards, and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land.
Acts 28. And when they were escaped, then they knew that the island was called Melita. And the barbarous people showed us no little kindness, for they kindled a fire, and received us every one, because of the present rain, and because of the cold. And when Paal had gathered a bundle of sticks, and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat, and fastened on his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, No doubt this man is a murderer, whom, though he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live. And he shook off the beast into the fire, and felt no harm. Howbeit,
They looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly. But after they had looked a great while, and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds, and said that he was a god. In the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island, whose name was Publius, who received us and lodged us 3 days courteously. And it came to pass that the father of Publius lay sick of a fever and of a bloody flux, to whom Paal entered in and prayed and laid his hands on him and healed him. So when this was done, others also, which had diseases in the island, came and were healed, who also honored us with many honors. And when we departed, they laded us with such things as were necessary. And after 3 months we departed in a ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. And landing at Syracuse, we tarried there 3 days. And from thence we fetched a compass, and came to Rhegium. And after 1 day the south wind blew, and we came the next day to Puteoli, where we found brethren, and were desired to tarry with them 7 days. And so we went toward Rome. And from thence, when the brethren heard of us, they came to meet us as far as Apiforum, and the 3 taverns, whom, when Paal saw, he thanked Elohim, and took courage. And when we came to Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard, but Paal was suffered to dwell by himself with the soldier that kept him. And it came to pass that after 3 days Paal called the chief of the Yehudim together, and when they were come together, he said unto them, Men and brethren, though I have committed nothing against the people, or customs of our fathers, yet was I delivered prisoner from Yerushalaim into the hands of the Romans, who, when they had examined me, would have let me go, because there was no cause of death in me. But when the Yehudim spake against it, I was constrained to appeal to Caesar, not that I had aught to accuse my nation of. For this cause therefore have I called for you, to see you, and to speak with you, because that for the hope of Yasharel I am bound with this chain. And they said unto him, We neither received letters out of Yehud concerning thee, neither any of the brethren that came showed or spake any harm of thee. But we desire to hear of thee what thou thinkest. For as concerning this sect, we know that everywhere it is spoken against. And when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him into his lodging, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of Yahuwah, persuading them concerning Yahusha, both out of the Torah of Moses and out of the prophets, from morning till evening. And some believed the things which were spoken, and some believed not. And when they agreed not among themselves, they departed, after that Paal had spoken 1 word. Well spake the Ruach HaKodesh by Yeshayahu the prophet unto our fathers, saying, Go unto this people, and say, Hearing ye shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see, and not perceive. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Be it known therefore unto you, that the salvation of Elohim is sent unto the Gentiles, and that they will hear it. And when he had said these words, the Yehudim departed, and had great reasoning among themselves. And Paal dwelt 2 whole years in his own hired house, and received all that came in unto him, preaching the kingdom of Yahuwah, and teaching those things which concern the Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach, with all confidence, no man forbidding him. The end of the book of the Acts of the Apostles.